if this actually, let's see. We should be able to just go ahead and include this stuff. Let me just check here this Dashkin editor extensions runtime. We want to include the private include paths for the editor. Alright, we have. Good. That means that we'll be able to access stuff inside of the editor here, so we can pound if stuff in our CVP files. Cool. Alright, let's build this. We might almost be done screwing around with the editor plugin stuff, which would be good. Maybe we can actually move on to something that doesn't suck. Hey, achievement. Yeah, we'll get on to something that's not super awful. Actually, who am I kidding? Alright, cool. So that all compiles out. Let's make sure that it doesn't just crash on startup. Because that would never happen. So some of the things we need to mess with is we need to make a shipping build, make sure that it doesn't explode when it's trying to cook stuff, because editor plugins that are set up improperly will explode your cook process, because the editor, in order to cook assets for Unreal, will actually run the editor itself in kind of a headless commandlet mode, and if you're doing stuff with assets inside of there, sometimes it'll just blow up on you if you're not doing stuff properly. And I would never do anything improperly. That's more of it's real easy. Yeah, see here we got this thing exploding. Error automation tool. Alright, yeah, that's because we're not detached from the editor itself. So let's detach it. Did that not do anything? Oh, it popped up a window on my other screen. Just like, wait a minute, why is it frozen? Yeah, it's more of just the editor plugin stuff. You can get it set up nicely and actually working for everything, and then you don't do things right? You mean to say that I would just hack bullshit in there? Nah, it's more of if you don't understand something completely, you may have made a plugin that works properly as far as you can tell, but then somebody actually tries to go cook a game with it or something, and then it just blows up on them. Pretty much because a lot of it's not as straightforward as you might expect. Where it's like, oh, okay, when running this mode, you have to make sure you don't use the command line because this doesn't exist So it's not always as simple as just like works on my machine. Yeah, it's more of you try to do things right and you have all the information that you have, but you don't have all the information that exists. So you assume that you did things right and you've done things right to the best of your knowledge, but as some people would say, you can play the game and make all the right moves and still lose. Alright, now it looks like it's working properly. Yeah, and you can see we actually have all this is packaged up inside of the Dashkin plugin for everything, which I've got all set up with properly. So we have an actual official Dashkin plugin which contains all the assets and logic in order to make the game. How cool is that? It's like a real thing. Alright, let's go ahead and close that. So what we're going to want to do is we want to go to our editor extensions runtime. We're going to want to go to our Dashkin editor utils, and we're going to want to make a function here which is a static what is this? It's a static class build.cs shims data. Alright, static class Dashkin storage object pointer create storage object. So const f string address name, const f string address root, and I think that's enough of that. Then we'll do static class void save storage object, and we'll pass class u Dashkin storage object. Is that what we should do? Let's see if it works. Well, first let's see if our includes actually work properly. Static class void, what the hell am I thinking? That doesn't exist. Alright, so Call to create a storage object editor only. Call to mark the storage object for saving editor only. And what we should be able to do up here is we should be able to include Dashkin editor utils. We should be able to include Dashkin shimsdata.h. That should be a thing, and if we're inside the editor, we're gonna include Dashkin shims object factories.h. Well, this is really the moment of truth. If I set up everything right, is if I can actually include the definitions of the objects inside of the runtime plugin. And of course it'll work properly the first time, right? That's what we're known for around here. What works the first time? I don't know. Usually stubbing your toe works the first time. You don't really need a second time on that one. Alright, it looks like it was able to include it properly. Alright, so let's go ahead and start using it. Alright, so we'll get our whole pound else garbage going on here. So let's just do a basic check here. If our object is no pointer, we'll return. Otherwise, we're going to mark the package as dirty. I believe we can do that with anything. So if we copy this garbage, is there a post-edit change? Is that a function on something? We'll see. Alright, full texture path will be full object path. Alright, so we'll grab our asset tools, we'll make our object path. We're going to do a U, what's the name of the factory? So make a new object factory here. Create the asset. Use static. It's going to be a use storage object static class. Texture factory. This will be object factory. And we'll cast it to this. Unable to make object. And then we just have object, object, object. And I guess that's another thing. I was just the other day complaining and whining about pound includes and Unreal header tool stuff, and when you actually just accept reality for what it is, and just be like, well, I guess I'll have to make an editor plugin for this, and then I'll just have to make another editor plugin for this. I think actually just sit down and do it. It doesn't actually take that long. So I think that was one of the first lessons that we had to learn in college. Is the professor is just like, programming is all about just getting over yourself. If you can do that, you can be successful. Yeah. We'll just cast this to a factory. Alright, let's see. So we have private static class, object storage factory, get private static class. Unable to find I'm getting a linker error on get private static class. So that's inside of our object factories. Referenced in function. Dashkin storage object factory. So linker error means that we couldn't find the object, so why? Storage object factory. Alright. Unable to find the static class for this thing. Is this some sort of include thing that we got screwed up here? Like, we got private include module path names, public dependency module paths. Well, let's coming out some of this stuff real quick and try to make sure we understand what is actually the linker error. I think this is going to be a part of the magic incantation. So this is a linker error is when you can't find like a linker error is when you can't find what the map. It's basically like the the compiler gives you a map and of like a warehouse. Like if you're in an Amazon warehouse or something, and you want to find where the 5 pound bag of gummy bears is, and it says it's in aisle 5, and it's on the left hand side, under the Quaker oatmeal or something. And you go over there and you look, and like there are no gummy bears there, and you're just like, well, the map says they're supposed to be here. What the fuck? And it can be real difficult to track down why that is, what's wrong there. And what I'm pretty sure is we need this magical incantation at this front of this thing. Um, we need to export this thing. I'm pretty sure it has to do with this. So it's editor extensions. It's editor shims editor. I really don't know if this is it, but I hope to God it is. Generate view class body. And I really don't know what that actually does. Should I read about it? No. I don't want to learn things. And it was exactly as I thought it would be. We found the gummy bears. They were on aisle 6. Alright, so let's make sure this thing builds in the client mode as well. I'm gonna boot up the blueprint stuff. If sacrifice version black, go with midnight under blue moon. Yes, that is true, Karakan. Sometimes that is exactly what you have to do. It's like, what was that movie where this guy like wants to make a sacrifice because he's gonna like play baseball, and he's like, I need a live chicken. And like the baseball manager or one of his co teammates or whatever shows up with a bucket of KFC. He's just like, fuck, this isn't gonna work, guys. Alright, so this is called create storage object. Let's see if we can call it. There it is, create storage object, and it's going to return a storage object reference. So let's see if we can make a, let's just see storage object. Let's see if it's we can actually get a Dashkin storage object reference here. We can save it. That is exactly what we wanted. Amazing. It was an older comedy about baseball. Alright, so I can't believe that actually worked the first time. That's pretty cool. I guess we're done for today. No. It all worked. Alright, I'm going to build the client version and make sure that that all works. Then I'm going to... Did I pick debug client? No, I want development client. So once this works, I'm going to need to check everything in and kick off the build machine and make sure the build machine works. Because if it doesn't work on the build machine, it's going to break all Adam's crap, and Adam will be all upset, and I'll be asleep because my sleep schedule is now such that I am awake while Adam is asleep. So he'll like wake up and then do a bunch of Bob's Burgers work, and you know, be like, all right, fine, finally I can get back to Dashkin, and then he'll try to like pull latest and compile, and it'll break, and then he'll just be like, well, damn it, and then he'll have to go do something else. But it's just kind of hilarious what we just had to do in order to create literally just saving a U asset to disk in the editor. Like, we had to make, if I didn't already have a plugin framework set up, that would have taken forever. And if I didn't already know like the magical incantations for setting up all this stuff, that would have been just like an impossible task. Like, you give that task to, like, if I was at, you know, some company and I gave that task to, like, you know, an associate engineer or something, and that'd take that person all damn week to do, because there's so much stupid tribal knowledge you have to know about Unreal 4 in order to get that to work properly. Time zones, yeah. There we go. Declaration of distance hides previous declaration. Do we even use this thing? Doesn't look like it. Let's make sure to check it out. Yeah, that's one of the most annoying things about programming stuff is you'd be surprised how complicated. I mean, you might not be surprised. You might fully expect this, but programming dates and times is one of the dumbest, most convoluted, ridiculous things of all time. One of the other convoluted, ridiculous things is like currencies. Like, I think you think, okay, we're gonna make like this fully multi-threaded, crazy server technology with fibers and, you know, lockless queues and all this crazy stuff. Nah, man, that's chump change. That's easy. You need to make a date and time API just to know what time of day it is in, like, you know, Finland or something. And then you're like, oh man, that's gonna take like 4 years to make. We're gonna need the smartest people. I mean, can we just build a space shuttle? Jesus Christ! It'd be easier to land on the moon than to make a sane date and time API. Can't we just do all of our time in terms of seconds since 1970? Like, that seems reasonable. Like, yeah, we'll do that. It's like, that's exactly what happens. Alright, so our client here is working properly. Totally did what we wanted it to do. That is amazing. Alright, let's switch back to our development editor and let's check all this garbage in. Alright. Adding Dashkin editor, shims, editor, and runtime plugins. World time, yeah. Yeah, ask a room full of programmers to write a date and time algorithm. Come back like 3 weeks later, and they're designing death rays in order to take over the world. So it's like we found it would actually be easier if we just took over the world and imposed that everybody use the same date and time all over the place than to create this monstrosity. And we're gonna make everybody use Bitcoin. What Vietnamese time is. But that's like the crazy thing about the date and time stuff is it's all relative, right? Like, you know, what date and time is it? Well, it depends if I'm in the state of Arizona and somebody is like, you know, daylight savings exists or whatever the hell, right? You're just like, oh god, you know, somebody passed a new law. We're gonna have to patch all of the languages on all the servers. Yeah, it's trash. Alright, so I'm going to kick off the Dashkin build here. And if anybody's interested, we use Jenkins to build all of our stuff in a server under my other desk, which is over there. So, kick that off and I'll know if it breaks sometime in Dust Future. Alright, so we got our shims, we got all that garbage going on. Cool. So we should be able to actually start saving our data then as F vector 4s, which is excellent. So, I'm going to swap this over to saving our flow field data for water. Just the fish. So let's see. I need to figure out how to access flow field data at runtime. Yeah, so the first thing that we had to do is figure out how to actually save that data. So what we should do is actually save that data and write functions to access it? Question mark. Yeah, I think one of the funniest things about, like, I've worked on a lot of build systems and stuff like that, and the funniest thing is copying files. And by funniest, I mean, you know, not like the haha funny, but the like ironic funny. Because you think it'd be real simple, and like this would be a problem that's solved and like just works, right? Like robocopy, or you know, just copy, or Xcopy, or you know, XXcopy, or any of those programs that exist would just copy files in the best possible way. You know, like everybody copies files all over the place, right? You know, just like even my parents copy files to external hard drives. But it's sad you can actually get a huge performance increase by writing your own file copy functions for stuff. And doing crazy multi-threaded file copy crap. It actually, like we were able to reduce like our build and copy times from like 20 minutes down to like 30 seconds with the proper like diff algorithms and multi-threaded copies over networks. Crazy how a lot of that stuff goes. So if you're writing a build system, consider writing your own copy function. Somebody is of course going to ask you why in the hell you are writing your own file copy function. Just tell them somebody on the internet told me to do it, and I'm sure they'll let you off the hook. That's a renegade humankind funny. Yeah, that's... What are we doing today? Murder. So let's continue. So let's see, what we need to do is we've got this array of f vector, you know, f colors. Let's just test. Alright, this is going to be the flow fields data. So we'll compile, save that. This is the data for the flow field. It's going to be saved. Calculated field. Alright, we don't need that. Alright, so the full field data, let's... So save texture asset, we're going to want the save storage object. More life advice? Oh no, what is this? None of that stuff goes. So if you're writing a build system, consider writing your own copy function. Somebody's of course going to ask you why in the hell you are writing your own copy function. Just tell them somebody on the internet told me to do it, and I'm sure they'll let you off the hook. I mean, it's not bad advice. Alright, so we're going to save storage object? No, we want to create storage object. Name, root, blah. And then we want to fill it out. Alright, so the name of this thing is going to be... This will be static flow field dat. Now I'll just kind of copy paste some of this stuff just because I can. Alright, so that is the name, and this is the root. Sometimes these things just look all sorts of awful. Alright, so we should have our storage object here. Let's take a look at the storage object. It's a T array of F vector 4s. It should be M vectors. Let's just test that it actually works, you know? Bunch of garbage. Alright, so this is construct static flow field. So let's see it in action. Alright, so we have our Dashkin storage object here. And we can't see anything on it. That's okay, that's totally fine. Oh yeah, we need to actually set our variable here, don't we? Alright, so we've actually set it and everything like that. I'm going to want to, before I create this static object, I want to print it out. So let's do that for each in an array. Let's grab the flow field data. Vector 4 structure is not compatible with string. Aw, come on, give me a thing here. I gotta make all this Fisher Price garbage right here. Alright, so we actually had it saved. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's go ahead and shut down the editor, reload it, and we'll see if we still have all of our data properly set up in this thing. Well, let's take a look at this. Supposedly it's still saved. I mean, if we open it up, I don't see anything in here, which is interesting that we don't see anything in there. It's actually good, because what I think would happen if we opened up this thing and let's say we had a 512 by 512 texture saved as part of the flow field data in there, Slate would crash, because Slate would try to render out like 100,000 things, even though we didn't expand the data. Slate's stupid. Or at least the way that that piece is implemented is stupid. Alright, so it looked like our elements actually got saved, which is excellent. So I am going to be right back. Alright, we'll get back to this. So we got our assets saving. I'm going to go ahead and take that loop out before I accidentally crash this thing. Because this loop is going to get real expensive when I have a million things in that array. So let's see what a linear color actually is. It's a struct linear color. Because that's what we're going to want to be saving, our linear colors, I believe. And I think structs start with F, so it should be F linear color. So what does a linear color actually have in it? It has 4 floats. Alright. So let's see if we can actually make our linear color out of all that. Because that's probably the data that we're going to want to store and everything on these F linear colors, not the vector 4s. So I'm going to add another one. So we're going to have a T array of F linear color. We're going to call this M colors. And let's actually create that reset function. Let's see if we can actually do a T array of these objects. So the next thing we're going to want to do, I think, is change this texture that we're referencing for the flow field. We want to, instead of having it be this ARGB 0 to 255 nonsense, we're actually going to want to have it be a linear color array. And I'm really not sure how to do that. So let's figure out how to save a texture using not an array of F colors, but an array of linear colors. What's this BGRA8 sort of stuff? Let's take a look at it. Because I'm pretty sure this text source init is what's going to be doing this. Okay, so we have the texture source format. Let's go look this up real quick on the internets. So I was gonna think about like what do these actually mean, and yeah, that's amazing. That's a lot of information there on what these mean. The description is freaking empty. Alright, so the format the data is stored in, and there's no information on any of these. Am I using a deprecated one? No, okay. Alright, so G8 I would assume would be like green 8 bits. Is that what it is? BGRE8 would be what? What's the difference there? BGRE8. Empty? Is that what BGRE stands for? So it would be just 8 bits. So this would be a 24. This would be a 3-byte color. This would be RGBA 16. So that would be 0 to 65,000 sort of stuff, and then RGBA 16F. So RGBA 16F. Let's just search save linear color to texture Unreal. Let's see if there's anybody who has some sort of stuff in here. Let's just Google create texture runtime Unreal. And let's see if there's anything in here for writing to this.